This is Forrest Byrnes of the hit game Firewatch, and if you've played the game, you've all let me die. Especially Markiplier, he threw me in a ravine first.
Hi, this is John with Star.Make, and that was Forrest Byrnes from, as he said, the hit game Firewatch. We had just finished the game, and Forrest pops up every once in a while, and he's kind of a cool little Smokey the Bear-like anti-forest fire mascot. And we thought it'd be really neat to take a screen grab of him in the game and just make something 3D out of him. And that's what we're going to do today. We've got our photo editing program up. And you can see what we've turned Forrest into, but he didn't always look this great. If we come down and take his teeth and take his skin and take his background and take his board, this is what Forrest looks like after a little bit of cleanup in the game. Now, if you want to do this yourself, you would want to take a screenshot of the game with him as perpendicular as possible so that he looks the way he does. If he's at an angle, you can fix that with a little bit of perspective distortion or anything. And that's how we started. I'm not going to go through everything, how we did it from start to finish, but I'm going to give you basically an idea of how I did it. And as always, there's a million ways to do everything. You may want to do it your own way. You may want to do it this way. And of course, at the end of the video, in the comments or on the description or something down below, I will have the STL files available for your download. So we have Forrest already started, and he's pretty beat up in the game, and we need to fix that. What our thought is we're going to fix Forrest up. We're going to take him into Inkscape. We're going to do a paths trace. We're going to trace the art on Forrest, and then from there we're going to export a file and go to SketchUp. So to get started, we need to clean Forrest up a little bit, and we did that here. And if I put our yellow layer on, we've cleaned him up. Now the way I did that was I zoomed in on the object and painted. I used a brush, and for the small details I used small brush. For the large details I used a large brush. But I used a different color than yellow, because if you do that, you're not going to really see where you are and where you need to go. I did basically a green. Finished him up. If I go ahead and just isolate that, you'll see what I had painted, and my brush strokes with a regular mouse just are not perfect, and they don't need to be, especially when we get down to a small size like this. And we're also going to have Inkscape do a little bit of smoothing for us as well, and he'll look really great. So here's what we had done with just the yellow. And if I go back to the original Forest, you see that a lot of the detail is missing. So do your best. Do your best at tracing what you want to trace, and doing the yellow pieces. And something like down here where the handle is, if you can't really figure out where the yellow begins and the black stops, then just wing it. Just make it look what you want it to look like. If I go back down here and add our yellow and our black, we also see that Forrest is missing a set of teeth. I'll go ahead and enable those that layer as well, and there we go. We've got some teeth for Forrest. But 3D print, I really didn't feel like doing 3 different colors. I just did the 2 colors. So I may go back and I may paint him some teeth, or I just may keep him as the 2 color. All right. From there, what I had done was I had saved him as a high quality JPEG and taken him into Inkscape. Now, if I undo a few of these Inkscapes here, you're going to see our Forrest Byrnes as we had imported him in Inkscape. And if I scroll over to the right, this is our Forrest Byrnes after we've traced him. So you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and trace him again so you can see exactly what we did. Zoom out a bit. Scroll over and select our buddy here. We're going to go up to Path, Trace Bitmap. And we're going to find something that we pretty like. I'm going to keep the scans up a little bit high, because what happens with this is, and this is just what I like doing, what I found that worked best for me. You may find a different way or be using a different program altogether. I did colors. I did 6 scans. Hit OK. Close this, and then we're going to have 2. We're going to have Forrest, which is our original JPEG. We're going to delete him. And then we're going to have a couple other Forests that we're going to need to, to take out. And we're going to have a few different scans here, and we're going to need to pick out which scan we like the best. And already I like this olive one over here to the left. This one here, we're missing a little bit of the detail. I'm going to delete that. Just the yellow not working. And then the last couple that we have are right here. I like this one the best. And I'm going to export this. Excuse me, I'm going to save this as a DXF. And I'm going to call this a new forest.dxf. And it exists. Let's replace it. From there, I'm going to go into Sketchup. Now, depending on the version of Sketchup you have, you may have normal importing of DXF like the Pro version has, or older versions do DXF. They kind of took that out. So it gave people a reason to buy the program, among many other things. Or you can download a plugin called, I believe it's Free DXF, and I've used that. I've used that on occasion. It's a very nice piece of software. I have the Pro installed on here, so I'm going to import the DXF file. There's our new Forest, and Forest is absolutely huge. If we center him to the window. There he is. Now, sometimes when I do an Inkscape to DXF, I get these little lines. See these little lines right here? There's one in his nose, there's one in his hat. They like to hide in small areas. Just go through your entire file and find and delete them with your eraser. Oh, there's one right there. Okay. Make sure we're doing good. And we're doing good. Once we have Forest done, we have just lines here. If you look down here and you see this this blue line here, you can see it through Forest. What we need to do is we need to make a face. We need to make faces between all those lines. And I use a plugin called Make Face, but I think it's S4U Make Face if you search in the extension warehouse for it. What that does is it's going to take all your selected lines and just fill them in with a face. And the face is what we need because when we make the extrusion, when we push and pull the separate layers, we need those faces to do it. And here we go. We have Forest all good to go. Looks good. Now again, I'm not going to do the entire model. This will take some time, but to just get you started. Now when I printed out Forest, and if you do Forest or you do another video game character or just another project, you need to figure out what parts are going to be what colors, of course, and do you want to do the first layer as yellow and then put black on top, or do you want to do the first layer as black and then put your yellow on top? I opted for the latter, doing black first and then doing yellow, just because otherwise, you've got a natural progression. Otherwise, it would have been obviously reversed. So I like that. I like 1 millimeter and 1 millimeter. You can do different sizes. I will warn against doing too thin on your second layer, especially if you've got a lighter color over top a darker color, just because you may see the darker color through the lighter color if you don't have it thick enough. One thing we do need to worry about before we start extruding these layers is we need to worry about the height of the model. We didn't size it in Inkscape. This is the perfect place to size it here, and you can see on the model, you can see it's 170,000 millimeter. My face is covering up the typical length measurement window that does that as well, so I apologize for that. But as you see, it's 170,000 millimeter. If I bring the tape measure up and just click once in the basic vicinity, and if I type on my keyboard 5 inches and hit the enter key, what happens is Sketchup says, hey, maybe he wants to resize it to that. And that's exactly what it's asking us. We want to do this before we do our extrusions, because if we have a 1 millimeter extrusion and now we're changing it from whatever to whatever, then we're going to resize the Z. We're going to resize that extrusion as well. So do this when you're still working with a two-dimensional model. I'm going to hit the enter key, and Forest is 5 inches is a lot smaller than what we started with. So we're going to need to zoom all the way in, or you can click this button up here, and now we've got our Forest model. I like bringing Forest at a little bit of an angle. Hit P for the push-pull tool here, and we're going to start with what we know is the outside. I like starting with the outside first. I bring it up a little bit. I don't touch, I don't hit the mouse button or anything because I'm going to type 1mm on the keyboard and hit enter. And there we go. There, we're started. If you want a different height, you start off with a different height, because what we're now going to do is take all the other parts that are black and bring them up to that 1mm height. Now, as you see, I just did the center of the shovel. I didn't like the idea of putting a hole there. You can delete that that hole there if you'd like, or you can fill it in like I did, just how we did. I think it looks better. Your tastes may vary. I always recommend starting with your first color, because after you do that, oops, I need to do that again. Oops. After you do that, then it just makes it easier to keep track of your second layer. Now, our second layer, let's start. We're going to bring it up to the 1mm, snap it to there, and then we bring it up once again. And again, I'm just extruding it. I'm not hitting the mouse button. I'm hitting 1mm on my keyboard and the enter key, and there we are. We're at 2mm. From there, it makes it easy to pretty much match these guys over to something you've already extruded. And you can keep on going from there. Once you have that set, make sure you're make sure you're checking out everything. If you've got these extrusions here, you can get rid of them by hitting let's see. If we hit the control key while we do our push-pull, we actually add to it, and that can make it easier on you. I'm typically not that smart to remember that when I first start, so I always forget that anyway. If you've got the areas down here, you can just draw a line across them, and it'll fix the bottoms. If you have a problem in your slicer, typically with Inkscape designs that I've moved over into SketchUp, typically they always seem to need to go through the NetFab STL file fixer that's online. I'll put a link to that in the description if you don't already use that. That's a free utility. You just need a Microsoft account to log into the service. And that's about it for our SketchUp. I'm going to minimize that and now go into our slicer program. I'm using SLIC3R, and your slicer may vary, and we don't need to do anything special here. We're going to add the fixed STL that NetFab service fixed for us, just because I had issues with it. Okay, I've got Forrest on our bed size here. He looks pretty good. If I click him, we're going to have a size down here that I'm also covering up, I'm sure, and we can just verify if we'd like. We're going to look through all of the as much as we can and look for any kind of issues with the extruded parts. It looks good. If we go down to preview our layers, any STL file, any STL generation slicer program will allow you to preview your layers. And if not, for some reason, the next piece of software that we run will. I'm going through my layers and just making sure there's nothing kind of funky coming up. That looks good. From here, I'm going to export the G-code file, and I've already done that, so I don't need to do that right now. And we're going to take it into a piece of software called Repetier, and it's a free piece of software. It's donationware. If you use it a lot, if you like it, consider donating to them on their main page. I'm going to load up my G-code file that my slicing program created, and now we can see Forrest down here on the bed. Repetier allows you to view by layer, and then kind of go to that layer to add some stuff. And basically what we're doing is we're going to find out where the second layer starts, where our second color is going to start, and put a pause in there. Now here's a little word of warning about the pause. Depending on what machine you have, depending on how you feed that machine, you may need to go online and find out how to pause that. I'm using Octoprint. If you're using Octoprint as well, I believe the pause, your Octoprint is going to read that and pause it at that level, so that's good. If you're using something else different, you may need to research the best way to pause that. The best way for Octoprint to pause is an M0 command. And so that's just a word of the wise. When we get to the layer to edit the G code for our pause, just know that you're going to need to put the pause in that works for your machine. If we're in our standard print preview on the Repetier software and select Show Single Layer, and then use this slider right here to slide up, that's the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth layer. And when we get to our seventh layer, we're going to see that's where we really want to put our second color in. And we're going to hot swap that color in because I've got a single extruder machine that I'm printing this on. If you have a two-color machine, no brainer. But for us people that only have a single extruder, this is how we're going to do it. Great. We now know that the seventh layer is where our second layer is starting. We're going to go over to Edit G Code up here. Come down here and make sure our seventh layer is highlighted and hit First Layer. That is going to put our mouse right here at line 15,081. And that's where I'm going to put uppercase M0. And that's going to create my pause for my printer. Octoprint is going to pause it. It's going to stop. I can then jog the extruder out of the way, do my filament change, hit the resume button, and it's going to finish my print. You can also use sound commands here as well if you're not constantly watching your printer there to keep an eye on it, and just look at your documentation for that as well. So now let's say you don't want to start on a layer, you need to start somewhere else. I can kind of show you another option, which is nice because if you're not entirely sure you're in the right spot, you can do this as well. If you go to the area below, and these are kind of setting the machine up for where it needs to go. But if we get down far enough, we're going to see right up here at the top of his hat, the lines there are going to turn yellow, and that's basically saying, okay, you're on line 15,090. This is what that line is responsible for. And you can make it go down just by hitting your down arrow key, and you can basically see the exact path that your printer is moving, which is pretty slick. So if you're ever really unsure of where you are in your G code file, you can do that and try to figure out where that yellow speck is that is telling you, okay, this line does this. You can check out the previous lines, the next lines, and then go from there. We already have our pause in this code. From there, I'm going to just hit the save button, save it as my finished G code file. Make sure you write in there that you've got a pause in there, or it's two color. I've used the 2C file naming there. That way I know that when I upload it to my printer, I know that I've got a pause. I'm doing two colors, and that's pretty much it. When you send that to your printer, as long as everything went okay, it will pause after it gets done this 1mm layer of black. If you're not entirely sure how the pause is working with your software, or how to make it happen, then just make yourself a basic 3D print, maybe a hollow cube or a hollow cylinder in SketchUp, and go into Repetier and put a pause in there, and just kind of get a feel for how your printer likes to be paused on that. I will also give you a warning: once you pause, make sure you use your printer's LCD, your software, or as I would do, the Octoprint software, and jog your extruder head over away from the print. That works for a few things. First of all, if you keep your extruder right where it pauses, and I can actually see where mine paused, it will start melting your print just because it's staying there. That heat is building up, building up, building up. Also, especially when you're using a darker color and then switching to a lighter color filament, you need to extrude a lot of filament in order to get that pure yellow color. You need to kind of clean out that dark color there. And then once you're done, you just hit the resume button, and it goes back over the print and does it. Don't forget, if you're extruding anything, don't forget to clean up that goop that you've extruded. Worst case scenario, it pulls it back over to the print, it sticks, and then you gotta clean all that up. But that's about it. Forrest turned out really well. I'm going to put a little kickstand on him and put him on my workbench to prevent me from starting forest fires. And you can also take this if you want to do something else. You want to do some paper craft, or if you want to make a sticker, or cut vinyl sticker or anything. You're going to basically use pretty much the same techniques that we used up until SketchUp. and that'll keep your forest in a vector file that you can take into your either paper cutting software, your vinyl cutting software, or heck, if you just print each color, each layer respectively, you can cut it out by hand on on a piece of paper, put it on a piece of paper, cut it out by hand, and then glue them together, and you've got your own little Forrest Byrnes. So if you make one, please follow us on Twitter at star.make, and please tweet me that you made one. If you have any questions about this build or how something works, or maybe something I had forgotten, please leave them in the comments below. If you like the video, please like and subscribe. That makes sure that I know what people are interested in. And if you have any questions or actually any suggestions for projects in the future, leave them down below as well, and we'll hopefully get to them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.